So, Jeremiah Harding, Lord Insanity is Free here. I recently watched a terribly asinine video, which I could not, for some reason, text respond in this way to, um, called Tax the Rich, an animated fairy tale. And so, what this is it's something that, you know, is designed, I believe, to indoctrinate children into believing that the rich are the source of all of their problems. Um, that everybody who has, over $200,000 who is in the bracket that the video discusses is somehow instantly evil because they don't pay their taxes or, because they had a, this was one of the absurd parts, really. They had stacks of money fall on people's houses. Now, I know that that's just an analogy. Well, not an analogy, but a metaphor. I know that they're just trying to make it, amusing. But at the same time, it's completely false. It's not a matter of stacks of money falling. It's a matter of sound money not existing. It's a matter of the Federal Reserve printing endless currency so that these bastards can keep their regimes going. And it's not the rich, it's not the government. It's the rich, the government, and those who perpetuate the both of them. Ben Bernanke, for instance, he's one of the biggest contributors to this problem. And, you know, I'm okay with animated things trying to explain things on a more, fuzzy and acceptable level. But if you're going to do it, at least take the time to express the fullness of the picture. At least take the time to express all of the wrongs that this, system has. I mean, at least most of the wrongs. At least some. I mean, this is just so unbelievably asinine. It's sickening. And the worst part is that it's heavily advertised on the California Teachers Association. Like they're teaching people that what we're supposed to do is believe that the rich are the sole benefactors of this corrupt system, that the rich are the sole evil people, which is not true. I mean, there are lots of so-called rich people in the upper brackets that I don't believe are responsible at all. For instance, my political science teacher, he runs a fucking business. So he makes more money than is in, considered the middle income bracket. And so he's taxed into oblivion. He's torn apart by government regulations. And this isn't something he said in class. I don't think about indoctrination on that level. We talk in private about this kind of thing. And, it's insane. It is insane the level of shit that goes on in this country, but it's not because people make over $200,000. That's absurd. That's asinine. That is childish. That is an oversimplification. That is a gross exaggeration of the problem of unequal taxation, especially since, frankly, the reason we're in such deep debt isn't because we haven't been taxing the rich enough. It's because the Federal Reserve has been printing a huge amount of money to make sure that these problems stay, at least artificially, abated, you know, and to assuage the concerns of the masses, because they need a crutch. They don't need sound money, they need people who can bail them out. I'm talking to you, Obama, and you, Bush. You're responsible for this partly too. And they didn't go into any detail. They just said they printed more money. Oh, well, what about quantitative easing? What about the fact that our currency is no longer backed by gold and silver thanks to a liberal president who believed just like you do that richness is the problem here? Like, seriously? This is where we're going? This is where the dialogue is headed? I mean, I'm okay with saying that not taxing the rich enough is part of the problem. But you guys, you wanted to go in a complete other direction. You wanted to say that we don't tax the rich enough because we don't tax them more than the poor. That's absurd. That is just absurd. You want to codify normal people as different from poor people and rich people. Well, thank you very much, Lenin. Thank you very much, Marx. These things are all things that are present in the Communist Manifesto. These things are all things that are present in many of the liberally minded class warfare speeches that leftists give. You know, these things are useless to stopping the actual problem here, which is that we don't have sound money. We don't have, a valuable currency anymore. And, because of that, you can print as much money as you want, but it's not going to solve any problems. You know, the deal here is that we don't care about making these problems go away anymore. We just care about pointing the finger at a group of people. And it'd be fine if you were pointing that finger at the government, because without that, pretty much none of these problems would exist. People could still buy things based on current value. People could still buy things based on barter value. People could still own gold and silver without it just being, an investment in the potential collapse of finances. You know, you confiscated gold from the American people in 1930 fucking 3. And you want us to know that somehow being rich is bad? The government is the richest bunch of rich bastards on the planet. And you want to tell us that people who make over $200,000 are somehow the biggest culprits here? Fuck you. And to make matters worse, this problem is only perpetuated when you fail to consider the possibility of somebody else being right. And I consider the possibility of you being right. Maybe if there's some piece of information that I don't have, comment in the comments below. It would help. But the thing here is that all you're saying is that richness is the problem. That when people get too much money, suddenly they're the evil bad guy. And I don't want to think that. I don't want to think that if I work hard for most of my life and come up with enough money to be considered part of the 1%, that you guys are going to bag on me. Because I don't like the thought that even if I'm an honest businessman who does not engage in all of this crony capitalism, even if I'm an honest person who doesn't use his wealth for unjust powers, that somehow I'm going to be considered worse for it. That seems absurd. Do you understand how absurd that seems? I mean, sure, if I got there by unjust means, which granted a lot of these people did, that'd be one thing. But frankly, I don't consider putting your money where you want it to be as unjust. Especially since, it doesn't matter if we tax everybody 100%. Our current fiscal system is unstable enough that if we taxed people 100%, we would not break even. It's a problem of government. It's a problem of excessive spending. It's a problem of the mindset that everything is bad that has more than you. And I just think that that's the most immature, the most base way to think. That blaming an entire class of people that you don't fucking know is suddenly the best idea. I mean, government has instated these laws. Government has shown us over the years that they can abuse us as much as they want. And as long as they have the backing of the majority, it's fine. They're the problem. You can blame them and be fine. But just to blame somebody because they make more money than you approve of is just so infantile. It is just so absurdly moronically asinine that I can't begin to express my rage at videos like this. And it's a cartoon. So obviously you're not marketing this to adults, even though adults might find it a funny quip. You're marketing this to kids. You're teaching kids that an entire future generation should not be successful because you don't think it's good for their morals. How gross are you? How sick do you have to be to say that success is somehow bad? I mean, do you want a society of Walmart workers? People that have no ambitions, no goals, no nothing? Do you seriously want that? Because that's what you're bribing America into becoming. Just a society of people who blame everybody who has more than them and can therefore say, hey, I'm fine with being as where I am as long as I'm not one of those rich bastards saying that they own everything. It is just so absurdly stupid, just so wrong to say these things that it's inconceivable. And I wish that politics could come back to a level where people acknowledged all of the problems instead of just blaming a select group of people. You know, because just because you're rich, just because you qualify as a rich person, it doesn't even mean you're in the 1%. You know, I mean, they talk about the tax bracket and then they talk about 1%. The tax bracket isn't on 1% of the income earners. That's just Occupy Wall Street propaganda festering its way into your dialogue. This isn't the 1%. This is a larger percent of America than that. And even they, taxed 100%, could not pay for these toxic government programs like absurd wars overseas and Obamacare, forcing us to either pay a tax or be taxed by an insurance company that this was supposed to prevent us from even having to use. Are you serious? Are you very fucking serious that you think taxing the rich is the answer? Because it's not. I plead to you to stop making videos like this. Stop doing this. Unless you're going to acknowledge the whole full scale of the problem. It is just absurd. Well, I mean, you can't really expect more, but I'd love to hope for more, and I do. And I'm hoping this video can somehow engender some support for a liberty-based society where if you make a certain thing using your efforts, your body, you won't be criticized for it simply because you have it then. It just saddens me. But, I mean, if there are enough people like me, that might happen. If there are enough people who think in a libertarian mindset, that might happen. If there are enough people who think like you, that might happen. Because, I mean, at least they would consider the option that the rich aren't 100% innocent. I'm not suggesting that either. I just think that you guys aren't assessing the full scope of the problem here. And I think that doing so shows a lack of maturity. I think that doing so shows a lack of sense, shows a lack of perspective. And I think that doing so shows a lack of understanding for the fuller picture. And I'm 20. I don't expect you guys to think that I have any better way of expressing this than you do. I don't want you guys to think that, because if you think that age is a problem here, then this conversation was over before it started. But at the same time, if you're going to put in the effort to make this an animation, at least make it worth something. Something more than blaming a certain group of people that you don't know, that you don't have any clue about their lives, for things that may not even be related to them. Just get some perspective. Get some perspective. Because without perspective, without the understanding of these situations, our nation will never be healed. We'll never get the lower class out of any of this if we continue to blame the rich. That's why the flag I have in the background is upside down, because our nation is in distress. We're not going to solve it by talking about how rich people are so evil. We're going to solve it by talking about what we can do to make things better. And it's not just taxing the rich. That's just an easy way out. That's just your platitude. But it's not correct. That's all I wanted to say. Jeremiah Harding, or Insanity is Free, out.